Number one, the economic solution ain't working, which is bad enough. But number two, the economic solution is creating a banktatorship, not a bankocracy, a banktatorship where a small amount of people whose interests are in the banks are driving economic policy.
And the government, unfortunately, in Ireland is not standing up for the people. It's abdicated its role as representative of the people. The people in Ireland are getting completely hammered by these banking financial terrorists. The IMF and the EU and the ECB caused Ireland's crisis. So why are you going to them to ask you to solve the crisis? They're the ones that caused the crisis.
Clearly, this is a moment of, I think, positive momentum delivered by the ECB. The future can only be provided by more, not less, integration of the European project. The process of developing the euro is irreversible. So also must be the integration of Europe as a whole. So I see this as a very good day, which can create an element of confidence when so much has been lacking. But it now has to be followed up by a demonstration at national level of similar resolve to balance the books. We cannot go on as we did in the past, and the bank can only do so much.
Ireland needs to divorce itself from these financial terrorists and stand on its own 2 feet.
We stand at a crossroads where the people can rise up in mass against the financial oligarchs who are puppeteering this downfall and get rid of the political puppets of both the left and the right, or not understanding what is happening or who is really behind it. The people can be led into senseless acts of violence against black-suited policemen in battles that will not address the root of the problem, but will lead to pain and suffering. The first step is to nurture the understanding that the austerity offered by the bankers is not the solution to our problems, but the beginning of them. Then we will know what it means when the IMF tells us this will only hurt a bit.
Unless you have an answer, because otherwise you're just complaining. But I have an answer, and it's really simple. Here it goes. Do not pay the banks back 1 more cent. Some people don't like that idea. They say, hey, that's irresponsible. I'm not paying the bank. I am not paying the banks back 1 more cent. Hey, that's irresponsible. What would happen if everybody didn't pay their debt back? What would happen then? We'd be debt free. It can be confusing because obviously you don't want to steal, and if you borrow something from somebody, you should give it back. If I borrow someone's jumper, then they're going to get cold because they're at a loss, so I should give it back. Does that make sense? But what happens if they've already been paid? What happens if the banks have already been bailed out? If they've already sold the debt with derivatives? If they've already had it insured? If they've already been paid? You're not going to pay them twice. That would be irresponsible, right? So I wanted to make sure that the banks do in fact own the debt. So I wrote them a letter and an email, and I just said, could you please prove that you owe this debt? Please give me a signed invoice and a lawful valid signed contract. I expected to get that. But instead I got this email, and at the top it wrote, without prejudice. I did not know what that meant, so I looked it up. Cannot be used in a court of law. What are they trying to hide, sneaky fucking scumbags? So I wrote back a new email, big black bold letters, with prejudice. You must produce these documents, and if you do not, the loan does not exist. Never contact me again. Love and respect all human beings. A And they never produced a document, and I wondered why. And I thought it was something to do with derivatives. And they make that sound complicated. It's actually really simple. You get thousands of mortgages, you put it in one deal, call it something like an asset-backed security, an ABS, and you sell it. So I thought they just sold it. But then I realised it's worse than that. There never was a contract, because what I signed is called a piece of paper, called a promissory note, a promise to pay. And they used that as an asset to create the money. So, my signature, sign of nature, on a piece of paper was used to create the money, and behind my back with derivatives they profited. So if you look at it, they actually owe me money. But I believe in debt forgiveness, so I let them off.
The scam of all scams, you know. We're being, pardon my French, we're being ridden. Colonialism was more like it was an honest form of robbery. You know, at least they weren't trying to say like that they weren't robbing you. Whereas this now, the banks now, the big bondholders, they've refined colonialism, you know. Whereas it's a grey area. People don't really realise that they're getting robbed, you know, the way we used to do in the old days. Colonialism was perpetrated by ruling classes, you know, and the ordinary people were used and abused. The ordinary people of England were used and abused just like we were, you know. They're cannon fodder and, you know, they were robbed and ripped off and they were slaves just like we were. So that's important to see how exploited we were and for people to realise that it's being done again, you know. We have a lot of natural resources in this country and I think that's what these big bondholders are gunning for. That's what they want, you know. There's magic down there, you know. There's magic off the West Coast, you know. I've been all around the world. There's something about the West Coast. So that's why we have to watch these bondholders, you know, and this IMF, you know, because the IMF never go in somewhere and give money unless that country has something that they want. So we reckon it's our national resources off the West Coast that's what they're going to be gunning for. They're going to want to take all them out, you know, over the next few years. So look at what they've done down in Mayo, you know. They've stopped them for 10 years. So we can use that as a blueprint to stop them robbing us, you know, and raping us, and destroying our West Coast. Thinking outside the box, they're not towing the line about the politicians are telling us to think, you know. I watched a documentary called Money Masters, how the international bankers gain control of America. It's hours and hours long, you know, but it goes through all the history of these modern day bondholders, you know, and big bankers, and shows how they've caused wars and kept people impoverished. And they're just doing it again, so I think if all the people out there would look at this documentary. Don't give in, because we've been through a lot worse, you know, a lot worse in this country, but I think educate yourselves on what's happening with the banks, you know, how we're being scammed. It's a scam of all scams, I think so. Money Masters, how the international bankers gain control of America. I think everybody should, every skilled kid in Ireland should watch that movie, and it'll teach us about what's going on now, you know. It simplifies everything of what's happening to us and how we're being robbed now.